Well, thank you for inviting me, Ras and Anindya. This is a pleasure to be here. This is joint work with Peter Zubček and Zsolt Katona, some of my Hungarian partners in crime, working on a bunch of social media and network-related projects. So I have a couple of slides here that I will really cruise through very quickly because they just say that mobile is important. And they just say that a lot more money is going to be going into mobile. But really what is interesting is that you have a lot of different types of mobile advertising. So the session's title is, effectiveness of mobile advertising. Well, there are a lot of different types of mobile advertising. And for example, display advertising is still the most prevalent type of advertising, partly because just the implementation is very simple and very easy. And there has been some research about it. We have been talking about in applications advertising, and again, I don't want to talk about it much more. Obviously, when we think of mobile, the killer application is, how can we use location in order to improve the effectiveness of advertising, and how can we use, the fact that we know where the consumer is to our advantage. So this is a little bit the type of advertising that Anindya was talking about. You're passing by a Starbucks, and can I get you there while you are somewhere in the surroundings? Now, and like many people believe that this is definitely sort of the killer application for retailers especially. But what about the consumers who are not passing by? I mean, obviously, we know a hell of a lot about consumers just carrying their mobile phones around. So especially the service providers, there are privacy issues, but they have a record of how you're moving around, who you meet, where you go, and so forth. And the question we were asking is, can we actually extract some information about you and make the advertising more effective, understanding your behavior? So if we have longitudinal data about your locations, hopefully we learn something about your customer lifestyle, and then maybe we can improve the segmentation and targeting of our advertising. So this is really looking at customers who are 100 feet away, and the real research question is, how does location information help predict customer behavior or segment membership? Now, so here is Columbia Business School on a Google map, and of course, if you know the actual location where people go, that is a lot of information already about them. Okay, so obviously, if you not only know sort of like who do they meet, but you also, so here there are two people. Why is P1 here? Maybe he is basically attending Columbia Business School. That's great, but although he actually may just wants to go to Joe's, which is a really good coffee shop. For a European, even in New York, it's actually a premium. But he may just take the subway, or he may just be there because he wants to meet another person. Okay, but clearly, if you know the actual location of these people, you can infer quite a lot of information from them. And then you can think, what if I observe a few consumers regularly being at the same place? So maybe they are actually belonging to the same family, and this is their home, right? So especially if I have timestamps and this is during the night. What if I observe many people at different times going to the same place pretty regularly? Gmaybe this is a hot location, and the nature of that location is going to reveal quite a bit about them. It is also possible that I observe a smaller group of people collocating, but at different places. So maybe these are a group of friends, right? So just by observing their behavior, I can infer quite a lot about them, not just in terms of what their preferences are in terms of location, but also how do they relate to one another. Okay? And in fact, this is how our study was done. We have location data about consumers and where they collocate over time, but we don't have the point of interest information. So it's actually very weak data, and I would like to sort of convince you that even from this very weak data, you can actually learn quite a lot about the consumers. So let me just click through this. So the model is we have this grid, and it's very similar to a former paper that was looking at consumers kind of moving around in a store. So we have this grid, and we have the consumers represented by these dots. They are moving around, and then at some point they will meet. So the way we define collocation is that they are at the same time at the same place. This could be differently. This could be, they at different times are at the same place, but we were actually quite conservative. So same times at the same place. Then they wander away. So this green guy has showed up at the previous location, but we don't count him as part of this group who are collocated, okay, because he came later. So what is the data? So this is the model, and the question is, can we infer something about their response, their behavior, by just observing their collocation over time? So if a person has responded some way, and that person is meeting another person very often, can I say something about this other person's behavior? Can I forecast the behavior of this other person just by knowing that he collocated to somebody else I know the behavior? Okay, so it was a small pilot experiment ran by a small Pacific Rim country. So 2012. The participants were mobile subscribers. They downloaded this app and received basically digital coupons. The coupons were, so we have 265 subscribers, and the coupons were roughly from $1 to $10 with an average of $5. And their validity was around 10 days. And what you saw is that this was in a lot of different categories. So the nice thing here is that you have cross-category data, so consumer packaged goods, food and beverage, retail, recreation. There were some subcategories that we found a little bit confusing, so we haven't used those. And after cleaning the data, we were only left with 265 subscribers, but we knew quite a lot about them. Okay, so we knew demographics, psychographics. They even got some quizzes through the app, some crazy questions that they could answer to, and some of them were really engaged. I will show you a couple of these questions. And they could also refer this promotion to one another. Okay, so if you are part of the promotion, you can refer it to your friend, and that obviously we would expect would have a positive impact on people's behavior. And what is this behavior? It's whether you have accepted the promotion, okay, to see the promotion, and whether you have validated the promotion, whether you checked in your coupon while you were at the store. So in terms of demographics, we had age, gender, and this type of prototypical demographic variables. Psychographics: do you enjoy shopping for clothes? These kind of questions. Are you a buyer or not? And the quiz variables, as I said, were quite crazy. So here is one: there is a zombie outbreak. Choose your weapon item wisely. And you could respond. Actually, just I'm sure that you are excited to know that it's a shotgun that won this this quiz. All right. So why am I showing you this? Because this is actually a very rich data set in terms of if you think about traditional marketing, and we would like to say, like, what kind of data would I want to gather about consumers to kind of like infer their behavior? Well, demographics, psychographics, and referral data definitely would be something that would be prime candidates. And there's quite a rich amount of information in those terms here. So we are putting ourselves up against a lot of good predictive variables when we are thinking about collocation. So is the fact that I really happened to be at the same place at the same time, is it going to be able to compete with all these predictive variables? Okay. And it turns out that it does. So we have this grid. It's basically a relatively large city. In any given hour, we know the timestamps of consumers and where they are. So we can define collocation. We can define a network where we connect to people if, one day before they got the offer, they have been at the same place at the same time. That is, so we build a network like that. And we have an alternative network, which is coming from the referral data. Okay. So what, actually, just taking a step back, what might this collocation mean you know, it basically probably means some type of homophily, meaning that, you know, if you are at the same time at the same place with another person, then you might be actually similar to that person. Okay, so in terms of preferences, in terms of your behavior. And so that is really what this model is testing. All right. So how is the model looking like? It's a very simple logit regression model. So the probability that you validate your coupon, given that you've seen it, is going to be a logit function of a bunch of variables, the variables that I have showed you. So there's like 4 categories. The first one has to do with the actual offer. So the product category, the price, and the average validation rate, so, you know, which would be sort of a measure of how attractive that category is to consumers in the first place. A bunch of personal covariates, which come from the demographics, the psychographics, and the quiz variables. And then 2 network variables, one of which refers to the referral behavior. Okay? So basically, I'm taking all the people who are linked in the referral network, and I'm looking at what is the average behavior of the neighbors of a person. Okay, and I would like to, my expectation is that, you know, if that average behavior is highly likely validate the coupon, then that person is going to validate the coupon as well. And similarly, I have another network, the collocation network, where again I can look at the neighbors of the person. What is their average behavior? Is it predictive of the behavior of the person whose network I am actually looking at? Let me skip these first 2 slides, which are pretty technical, and let me go to the personal and quiz variables. It turns out that they are not very good. Okay, which is good news for us because we are competing against them. And what really ends up being important is the response rate. So how engaged you were in responding with the quizzes. Okay. So, for example, if I have this mindfulness variable, and sorry for naming it like that way, those walking barefoot in the park more often. So this was a question: how often do you walk barefoot in the park? And believe it or not, there are some people who do that, and it seemed to be having some impact. But this is really quite random. And what had consistently been useful is this variable, which is simply, you know, like, are you engaged with this whole campaign altogether? Now, so this is the full model, and there is some crazy variables, variable names listed on the left side. So let me drive you through those. Obviously, price matters and the offer length matters. So those would be the first 2 sort of like bolded ones, and that's not very surprising. That's fortunate that this is such. Those shorter named variables, they would be related to the categories, so consumer packaged goods, food and beverage, and so forth. And there's going to be some fixed effects there too, which is again not very surprising. But what is nice is these 2 variables. It turns out that the ones that really are predictive of behavior are the network variables. Okay, in this case, and what we find, so this would be the first one would be the location-based network. So the average behavior of your network neighbors that is created from this location-based data is going to have a very positive effect on predicting what your behavior is going to be. And similarly, in fact, that effect is going to be very similar to the magnitude of the effect that we get from the referral network variables. Okay, which I think is a pretty strong man. If we try to look at, you know, how much the collocation data is going to improve our general model estimate, not the estimates, but the actual likelihood of the model, then you see that collocation does help quite a lot. In fact, it helps more than the referral data. Okay. And so we looked at also some marginal network effects. So what we find is that, again, you know, going back to the previous slides, we find similar things, that, you know, like the magnitude of the effect is roughly the same. And one way to interpret this is to say that this is actually a pretty strong statement, is that if someone recommending a digital coupon smartphone app to you makes you roughly the same prospect for a marketing campaign than someone you recently were at the same place at the same time. Okay, which is actually, I think, a pretty. This is really the surprise in this preliminary work. And like on India, what we are trying to do now is to go back, get a little bit better data, better in terms of the number of participants. I mean, these networks, if you look at them, they are actually quite sparse. You can just imagine 250 people. It's not very often that they find themselves at the same place. The effect is relatively strong compared to that, but we try to validate it with more customers, but also getting more information on the locations, right? I mean, obviously, if we know, for example, where these people live, we can kind of like have the kind of inferences that I talked about at the beginning. Are these family members? Are these friends? Are the locations themselves so attractive that they draw a number of people there? So this is sort of the line of research that the sequel to this kind of work. But the bottom line, and let me really stop here and not go through these conclusions, is that that location-based data, it can be very, very powerful at predicting consumers' behavior, and we don't have at the moment a lot of experience in exploiting them. The logical thing to do is, I attract you to the store if you pass by. That's very logical. I don't know how well it works, but we have much more data with people carrying their mobile phones around, and how we can exploit that is actually quite a puzzle. So let me stop.